Hi, my name is Stacey Bell Lynn. I spent 20 years working in local news, and 13 years ago, I married an NFL player turned coach, Anthony Lynn, and joined the world of NFL super wives. I've always loved hearing about the life behind the headlines. It's where you find the common thread that connects us. That's what I want to do here. My husband played and coached for the Broncos and 49ers. He's currently the running backs coordinator for the Commanders. We've moved 6 times across the country for his various jobs. When I first met my husband, I didn't know anything about football. I just loved the commercials and the snacks. Well, trust me, that's changed. In my new NFL world, the wives became my family and confidants. It is a sisterhood that transcends teams and rivalries. In each episode, I'll talk with a significant other of a player or coach, the football wives who hold it all together. We'll get real and give you a behind-the-scenes glimpse of it all. This is the world that I want to share with you. Welcome to Super Wives of the NFL, their inside stories. Let's kick it off. We are back for another edition of Red Zone Queens with my girl, Haley Elwood, NFL sideline reporter. She does all the things with the NFL. So thanks for squeezing me in again today, Haley.
Oh, Stacey, it's the best. It wouldn't be a week without talking to you. So really excited to be here.
I actually do look forward to this. Okay, so let's jump in. I mean, what stood out for you this past week with the games?
You know, I think that there were just some really interesting things that happened that you and I were kind of talking off camera. And one of those things sort of like came together, and it's almost injuries and then coaches being fired. And so I guess earlier in October, we saw sort of the first domino fall, which was Brian Callahan getting fired as the head coach of the Tennessee Titans. Mike McCoy, someone who I'm very familiar with, who had previously was the head coach of the Chargers, is now stepping into that role. But when you look over the weekend, Jackson Dart for the New York Giants goes out with, I believe, a concussion, gets evaluated for a concussion, has to leave. And then lo and behold, the next day, Brian Daboll gets fired from the Giants head coaching job. And so, you know, that one to me was just really strange timing, because I'm not sure the Giants kind of are what they are at this point. And it's almost like you can't really blame the injury on the fact that they lost. Like, it's just tough, right? It's a tough situation, but I know, you know, we are at this point in the season right now where seats are a little hot, and there's always turnover no matter what happens in a given NFL year. I think there's always like 5 to 6 openings that happen. And so right now we have 2, and it'll be interesting to kind of see what happens as the regular season just continues to progress, and if any more in-season firings happen as well.
I always am shocked when it happens in season. So those are the ones that are kind of like, you know, dang, you couldn't wait until December. But what you read sometimes, and I don't know, is that they maybe want to get a jump. The owners want to get a jump on the search for the new guy. I don't know.
It's an interesting thing. I mean, coming from my experience, because I've been obviously was with the Chargers for so long inside the building. Now I freelance for them. So, you know, it's a little different situation. But thinking of my history, obviously, you know, Mike McCoy was let go after the end of the season. Same, unfortunately, with Anthony. But then Brandon Staley gets let go in the middle of the season, or, you know, with a couple games to go there towards the end. And so it just kind of depends. And I think there is something to obviously be said about maybe getting a jump on the coaching search. The Giants, again, though, are really in an interesting position, in my opinion, because your season's kind of over at this point, you know, and if Jackson Dart, obviously, we know what happened with Cam Scadaboo getting injured a couple weeks ago and basically being done for the year. But if Dart has to miss time, you know, is it really worth putting him back out there at this point? And that's kind of another thing that you weigh. I believe at this point, the Giants play the Packers this coming week, and it looks like Jameis Winston is going to be starting that game. So they're just going to bypass Russell Wilson and go to Jameis. And so it's just an interesting thing. But, you know, you never know. Sometimes it's like, can we get a spark going? Can we kind of get a head start on the coaching search? But the in-season stuff, I'm with you. It's always a little strange, and it's always a little interesting. And like you said, can you not just wait a couple months? But again, we said it last week. The NFL is like the greatest reality show, because you never know what's going to happen in a given week.
And I say that, but, you know, I've had the feeling, and I've heard this from other friends, when it's your husband and you think he's dead man walking, a lot of times you do feel like, can we just wrap this up? Because, you know, we got another house and we can go be with the family for Christmas or whatever. I mean, it kind of works both ways. So I don't know.
I don't know.
That's a really fascinating perspective, just coming obviously from your perspective and having been there and having been around the NFL for so long. And also, I'm sure working under coaches who were in a similar position too. And I get that, though. I get that, because at this point we are, a couple weeks away, I believe, from Thanksgiving. And it's kind of like you said, like, yeah, let's just go home. I just want to call it a season.
Okay, so the other thing, injuries, I saw where, Travis Hunter got hurt and he's done for the season, and the Chargers play the Jaguars.
The Chargers will play the Jaguars this week, and that's actually a pretty big game, just knowing that the Chargers and Jags are kind of in very similar. The Chargers have a game up on them, but they're both currently in playoff contention. If the playoffs started today, they would both be in it. But Travis Hunter, I mean, it's just so disappointing, right? Because you knew coming out of Colorado, he was going to be this two-way player. There was a lot of talk about how much receiver was he going to play? How much defensive back was he going to play? And then he suffers a knee injury that ended up needing to end his season. And so it just cuts his campaign short. And it's just such a bummer, because you root for these guys, even if, you're playing against their team. It's guys like Travis Hunter who make the NFL kind of a better place, this like younger, fresher, more fun kind of blood coming in. And it's just a bummer at this point to see someone like that whose season ends so early. I mean, again, like going back to Jackson Dart, I don't know what the Giants are going to do there, but he's another rookie. And so these are two rookies that you felt could be in contention for some of those end of season awards, just given what they did in college, obviously, and then what they've been able to do in the NFL. Even though the Giants hadn't won a lot of games, Jackson Dart had been playing pretty well. But yeah, Travis Hunter, I mean, that's just a huge bummer, and it'll be interesting to see how the Jags respond. And I think for the Chargers, probably a good thing that you don't have to worry about a guy like that.
Yeah. I would agree. Okay, so we've also got some international games. The Commanders, we are in Madrid against the Dolphins.
First ever Spain game, which is actually pretty cool, pretty fun. Paul Tagliabue, the former NFL commissioner, passed away earlier this week, and Roger Goodell obviously succeeded him. And when you look at Roger Goodell's sort of resume at this point of work in the NFL, getting the international games going and just really ramping them up, I think, is going to be a hallmark of what his legacy has been. And so, like we said, Madrid, this is the first time that two teams are going to be playing in Spain. We also saw games in Berlin last week, the London slate, obviously, and then Brazil was another country on the docket. But then when you look at next year, the NFL is going to go to Australia. They're going to go back to Brazil. I believe, obviously, London's always going to be there. And then their return to Mexico City. And it's always kind of interesting and fun. I have been very fortunate to have been part of two international games with the Chargers in London and the Chargers in Mexico City. And I had a great London experience because I was there for the whole week, and I know the team wasn't. They spent most of their time in Cleveland and then transferred out. So it's always interesting to see the structure of how teams decide to set the practice schedules and the travel schedules and all of that. And obviously coming from the West Coast is so different than teams like the Commanders and the Miami Dolphins, who are going to be coming from the Eastern. It's just an easier trip. But I think it's going to be cool. I'm very excited to actually tune in a little early on the West Coast. It's I believe a 6:30 a.m. start, but why not? You got all day for football. What's another?
And, we did it years ago. I didn't go to Mexico City with the Chargers because I had to work. Work got in the way. We did it years ago with London, and it was a ball. Like the team did, so much fun stuff. So I'm missing Madrid, but I just couldn't make it happen. And, another thought I had, and I don't want to get political, but, as we think about this growing international audience for football, it plays right into the Super Bowl halftime show. You got this big international star. So I think it's, like you said, maybe this is going to be one of the hallmarks of Goodell, just making the NFL more international.
There's a lot of talk about when these media rights deals get readjusted in a couple of years, is there going to be a game every week internationally? Is that going to be something that, obviously has to be voted on and determined, but is that going to be something that will happen over the course of maybe the next 10 years? Are we going to see that? And if we do, I just think that's fascinating, because football, obviously it's an American sport, but it has certainly had global reach. And I always think it's cool when you kind of scan the fans in the crowd of those international games to see all the different jerseys. But I do believe international fans have become a lot smarter and more hip to the game. And to your point about halftime, incorporating someone like Bad Bunny, who I forgot was also a guest in the Miami halftime show with Jennifer Lopez and Shakira a couple of years ago. I was there. That was an amazing halftime. That was right before COVID. And I was like, if this is the last thing I see, I'm cool with it because it was awesome. But just growing again, that audience. And, the Super Bowl is one of those events that, like, my best friend isn't into football. She'll tune in just to see what happens with the halftime show. And I think it's just anytime you can invite another audience in, that's the goal of the NFL, is just to grow the game in a variety of ways.
I agree. Okay, last question, I think. I'm looking at the slate of upcoming games this week. Is this week 11?
Week 11. Here we are. It's crazy. It just goes by so fast.
So the one that stands out for me is Lions-Eagles Sunday night.
That's a huge game. And obviously we saw what the Eagles did with the Green Bay Packers this past Monday. Kind of a defensive slugfest, truly. I mean, it wasn't even a super aesthetically pleasing game to watch, if you will, because there wasn't a lot of scoring. But the Lions are now obviously atop the Packers in the NFC North. And so at this point, when you look at the Eagles, who currently hold the top spot in the NFC overall, leading the NFC East, but in the 1 seed for the NFC in general, this game could mean a lot. This is, as I kind of said a few weeks ago, one of those almost wild card type games where these teams are in the same conference, vying for the same, playoff seeding at the end of the year. And whoever wins this game, I truly believe, is going to have a leg up on the other one and probably determine who potentially gets the 1 seed, because Detroit's obviously also been playing pretty good football as of late, though they did, I believe, lose to the Vikings last week, right, which was kind of crazy. Not really as expected.
No, wait, hold on. They lost to the Vikings 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. Sorry.
Dan Campbell took over offensive play calling duties, and they beat us by 20 points.
That was it. They beat the Commanders this past week. So they got it back together, but at the expense of your team. But, oopsies happen every, week or so in the NFL. And so I think, again, this is going to be a big one. And then the other game I wanted to touch on was the Seahawks at Rams. This is a huge, huge, huge game, just in terms of the NFC West and also the NFC in general. Both of these two teams are 7-2 right now. They have yet to play each other this season, and the Rams are coming off a huge win over the 49ers. The Seahawks are coming also off a huge win over the Cardinals. So this is going to be a really, really big one. And Matthew Stafford is someone who obviously has been in the NFL for a really, really long time. I say that because I think we're around the same age, so it makes me sound old. But at this point, I don't think he's playing better football than he ever has. He is playing MVP type football right now. And I believe he is the first quarterback, I found the stat, since the AFL NFL merger, which happened, I believe, in 1970, to throw for 4+ touchdown passes and have 0 interceptions in 3 consecutive games. So the Seahawks, however, are playing really, really good defense. Can they stop him? Can they limit him? How is this all going to pan out? And I'm going to be at that game, and I'm actually really, really excited to be there and to watch and see what happens, because again, this is one of those wild card games in terms of conference, but also huge in the division, because this could be one of those deciding factors too, that whoever has the leg up going into their second meeting, which I believe is on a Thursday night, which should be pretty fun in Seattle. It's going to mean a lot with that one too.
Okay. So and we're getting down to the point in the season, I feel like, where if you have a good record and you're in contention for the playoffs and the Super Bowl, these games really start to matter. They always matter, but they're really important now.
That's a really good way of putting it. And it sounds funny because sometimes, you look at a team like the Chiefs, where earlier in the season, they had a losing record, and you kind of look at some of their games early and go, is this a must-win game? And it sounds silly to say that, at week 5 or whatever it might be. But this is really the time where if you're up against a team that also is really good, it obviously means a lot. And if you're up against a team that has I was going to say a S word, but I'm not going to go, a pretty poor record, if you will, you can't fall victim to that, and you can't have it be a trap game. So this is really where everyone starts locking in, because we are now more than halfway through the 2025 NFL season. There's still, a good amount of football to be played, but not as much. And so some of these games are now going to be more divisional games, like the Chiefs play the Broncos this week, and that's a pretty big AFC West game. And so, again, to your point, there's going to be a lot riding on some of these games, and these teams are certainly locking in at this point in the season.
Haley, thank you for joining us. I know I want to list your jobs, if that's okay. Haley is
okay, we can try.
working with KTLA in Los Angeles. You are still working with the Chargers.
Every now and then,
and the Lakers.
Yep. So I do Sirius NFL radio for Rams and Chargers. Lakers hosting. Just started filling in at KTLA. And then my fun random off job is I work for the National Lacrosse League as a sideline reporter for them. And their season doesn't start until, it starts at the end of this month, but their first home game that I'll do is in December. So why not? We'll just add all the sports.
Well, thank you for squeezing me in. I look forward to this. Haley Elwood, the woman of all things sports and the NFL. So thank you so much, Haley. We will talk again next week.
Thanks, Stacey. It's always fun joining you.
Okay, thanks for listening, and thanks in advance for liking this podcast and leaving a review. Meet you here next week.